Improvisation of any kind is either daringly delicious or it leaves a funny taste in the mouth. Traditionally, Star Trek has spat at and spat out anything that so much as flirted with winging it. As the performer, you'd be lucky to change an adverb, let alone ad-lib a line. Even The Rock was told the Sunkatse role doesn't allow for improvisation, in the Young Rock episode Know Your Role anyway. There have been exceptions over the years. The fact is that this is the second list of its kind is a testament enough to that. In the past, actors have gotten around the strictures mostly by suggesting dialogue in advance. They've also made up moves and gestures, now iconic practically on the spot. Or if they were William Shatner in the Immunity Syndrome, they've repeated the same line from the opener at the end. These days, improvisation is more and more accepted in the franchise, even encouraged. For a comedy like Lower Decks, it's a bit of a verbal spontaneity in the room that only adds value. For the other contemporary outings, off the cuff has occasionally been a little more jarring, though never completely incongruous. After all, this is Star Trek, and it's all made up. Some bits are just more made up than others. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 more Star Trek moments you never knew were improvised. Number 10. The F-bomb is not a cocktail. We've already discussed this particular piece of profanity in, well, our piece on profanity, but as the crew of the Enterprise D trapped in the Typhon Expanse would say, here we f***ing go again. Like your dad stubbing his toe on the sofa, Discovery introduced Star Trek to the F-word. Picard followed suit, kicking off with Clancy. In Season 3, the titular then added an F-bomb of his own via the actor off the cusp of the cut glass. If there is anywhere you can swear, the bar is the best place. Already on the Jemison, neat in the holographic recreation of Guinan's 10 Forward Avenue, Jean-Luc let slip that his 10 f***ing grueling hours in no-win scenario. The four-letter word ing wasn't in the script, however. As showrunner Terry Matalas told Collider in March 2023, Jonathan Frakes, Ed Spaliers and Patrick Stewart were rehearsing, and what they had crafted was so genuine and so intense that came out in the moment. Patrick said it and felt it, and it was real a couple of times. Fan reaction was varied. Matalas himself, having not been on set that day, admitted to being taken aback by it when he first saw the first cut. I was really torn because hearing that word come from your childhood hero, Captain Picard, it throws you, he added to Collider. Matalas apparently hesitated over removing the expletive entirely, but evidently decided it had to stay in. Number 9. Horse and a hot spock. If you've got Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid on set, you should probably let them add some of their own material. The former started her career at the illustrious Second City, as have some of the most famous comedians, the likes of Dan Aykroyd, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Mike Myers, Stephen Colbert, Tina Fey, and Amy Poehler. The latter has been part of a sketch comedy group, Sasquatch Comedy, since 2013. It's safe to say we're in safe hands. Improvise is precisely what both actors were permitted to do during filming of Those Old Scientists, much to the delight and relief of the episode's director, Jonathan Frakes, who told Variety in 2023, improvisation doesn't happen a lot on Star Trek, as you've probably heard, especially on our f***ing show, The Next Generation. They were so strict, it was like we were doing Shakespeare or Chekhov. In the same Variety piece, Frakes revealed that it was, in fact, Newsome who came up with the hot young Spock line. That ad-lib had an infectious effect on the rest of the cast. As we learnt on The Ready Room with Will Wheaton, Boimler's Riker over Pike's saddle horse in The Ready Room was also a bit of improv on the part of Quaid. Number 8. Letting his hair down. If Berman-era Star Trek had to be word perfect, there also couldn't be a hair out of place. So much so that when René Auberjonois quite literally decided to let his hair down during the filming of Crossover, the one with Kira Shikar and the Go-Go Odo Gadget turbolift arms, it caused quite a stir amongst the bigwigs. Towards the end of the episode, as Odo is perched on the floor, having just trashed his quarters, a couple of strands can be seen hanging from his otherwise meticulously kept shapeshifter do. The wayward coiffure came as news to makeup artist Michael Westmore. Decisions like that go through a chain of command, Westmore noted in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine Companion. Producers were surprised too. As Ira Stephen Bear remarked, also in the DS9 Companion, we were amazed by it. When we saw that scene in dailies, I couldn't look at anything else except that friggin' hair. It was all part of Auberjonois' plan. He had loosened up the locks in an effort to evoke an image from a Japanese print he'd seen of a warrior in defeat. The improv didn't end there. According to the DS9 Companion once more, it was Auberjonois who decided to throw that gift plant from Kira across the room to symbolise Odo's estrangement from her. No wonder his hair was messy. Number 7. The Vulcan touch. Don't believe everything you see on TV. The Vulcans are emotional people. What they bury deep down inside, they make mildly manifest through their hands and the odd raised eyebrow, or several. The salute and nerve pinch were creations of the actor Leonard Nimoy, as the previous incarnation on this list pointed out. There is another thing Vulcans do with their digits, however, the two-finger touching, for want of a better term. It was improvised too. Nimoy recalled the origins of the gesture in his second autobiography, I Am Spock. On the set for A Journey to Babel, he had the opportunity to talk at length to the man playing his dad. As Nimoy noted, Mark Leonard was very curious about Vulcans and wanted to know as much as he could know about them. Nimoy obliged his interest, telling him, I have this notion that Vulcan society emphasizes tactile contact, and I'm always on the lookout for opportunity to use hands and fingers as a symbol, a benchmark of the race. The conversation then turned to what public sign of affection, if any, Sarek and his human wife would display. As Nimoy added, hand-holding was clearly out, but perhaps finger-to-finger contact of a ceremonial, dignified nature might work. The finer detail of the gesture that made it to the screen in Journey to Babel was then the handiwork of both Mark Leonard and Jane Wyatt. The rest is semiotics and a fair amount of sex. Number 6. Weird is how we roll. You can only really be an actor if you embrace the strange. After all, pretending to be someone else is fraud until you make it a profession. Not unlike the Starfleet officer, weird is the job. The best actors lean into it. The even better lean into it and do a forward roll. That is, in any case, what Garrett Wang did during filming of Deadlock. If the OG Harry Kim had to die, at least his duplicate did things with panache. As the episode reaches its climax, Harry arrives in sickbay and comes face to face with two Vidians. For the scene, director David Livingston initially proposed that Wang phaser one of them, duck down, then come back up to phaser the other. It was Wang who suggested adding the forward roll, a move he had learnt in stage combat class back in college, the actor noted in Star Trek Monthly issue 106. In a very different sense, a good chunk of the episode was improvised, created as the need arose. As Jerry Taylor commented in Captain's Log's supplemental, the unauthorized guide to the new Trek Voyages, Deadlock came out 8 or 9 minutes short, and we kept writing scenes and they just kept getting gobbled up on those stages. Number 5. Comedy with Kahless. Kahless just wanted to be a stand-up, joked Sam Witwer to me in an interview with the TrekCulture podcast in November of last year. Instead, the original warrior got himself wrapped up in all those Thorn and other murders. Savage is the curtain for any prospective comedian. There's more room, at least, for Ronald B. Moore. One of the funniest lines of the 5th season of Star Trek Lower Decks involved one of the unforgettables. Trapped beneath his own collection of brush devil bones at the end of A Farewell to Farms, Malor, brother of Ma'a, cries out, I can see Kahless, the first one, the original one, the one that did impressions. That line wasn't originally in the script, however, but was an ad-lib that I was particularly in on. Witwer, voice of Malor, added to me on the podcast. During recording, Witwer began simply with I see Kahless. He then wondered out loud if we're ever going to deal with the fact that there's a clone, i.e. that one from Rightful Heir. To that, one of the producers suggested the rest of the line, a callback to the Excalbian copy of Kahless, who had a penchant for impersonation. Number 4. Purple head, silver guy. Time's the thing, be that the bending of its arrow or the dilation down on Dilmer 3 in Fully Dilated. As with Sam Witwer in the previous entry, time in the recording booth was also the time of improvisation with Brent Spiner for his appearance as an alternate purple-headed Data in the 5th season of Star Trek Lower Decks. Guy in a silver jumpsuit must be crying himself to sleep and or plotting his revenge. We silver suits are the lifeblood of the Federation, don't you know? But the reference to the cold open of Time's Arrow was hilarious. It was also entirely made up on the day. In an interview with Cinema Blend's Adam Holmes, Lower Decks supervising producer Barry Kelly explained the genesis of the idea. I think Brent Spiner just said, I was found in a cave. But then I think we just rewatched the episode right there with him, or described it as like, who found him exactly? Well, it's Picard, and then there's just some random guy in a silver jumpsuit. How about you just say that? Oh, and in case anyone was wondering, the final draft script of Time's Arrow gives said random as scientist, male, late 40s. In the episode, Picard also refers to him as Doctor. He was played by Milt Tarver. Number 3. Echoing the Greats. You don't have to know your Leonards from your Nimoy to be able to riff on I'm a doctor, not a... In fact, the phrase itself predates its usage in The Devil in the Dark, not a bricklayer. McCoy did make it famous in and out of Star Trek, but the line, through its multiple variations, now equally belongs to Voyager's EMH. Why? Because Robert Picardo, thankfully, decided to do a bit of improv. When the Doctor is, very inconveniently, left alone aboard ship in Caretaker, he concludes with, I believe someone has failed to terminate my program. Please respond. It was whilst reading that scene at his audition that Picardo decided to ad-lib, as the actor recalled in Star Trek Voyager, A Celebration. At the end of that line, I took a long deadpan look at the 16 executives all staring at me and I said, I'm a doctor, not a nightlight. At that point, Picardo didn't realise he was making a Bones joke and was channeling DeForest Kelley, adding, I'm delighted I didn't know because if I had, I would never have done it. In a 2024 interview with TVO Today's Steve Paikin, Picard credited the on-the-spot witticism with getting him the job amongst the 900 actors who had auditioned. The EMH would go on to appear numerous times throughout Voyager's run and beyond, and with the Doctor due to feature in Star Trek Starfleet Academy, will surely be treated to many more. Number 2. Subspace supplements. Continuing with comedy, and now twice the photons and force fields, in Star Trek Voyager's Message in a Bottle, both EMHs, Marks 1 and 2, were pretty much making it up as they went along. Sent back to the Alpha Quadrant over the Hirogen's intergalactic phone network, it took a good deal of improv before the Doctor could actually speak to Starfleet. A little neuroscene here, a touch of the multi-vector assault mode there, and the Romulans were eventually dispatched. Behind the scenes, Robert Picardo was also making phone calls over much shorter distances to writer-producer Brannon Braga. As Picardo noted in Cinefantastique Volume 30, numbers 9 and 10, "I've gotten into the habit of calling Brannon with joke suggestions, and I scored pretty well on Message in a Bottle." Picardo was particularly proud of one exchange he managed to get into the episode. During the scene in which the Doctor takes the helm of the Prometheus, the script originally only called for him to say, "Stop breathing down my neck," to the Mark II. It was Picardo who came up with the line that followed. Mark II, "My breathing is merely a simulation." Mark I, "So is my neck, stop it anyway." As Picardo quipped in Star Trek Voyager: A Celebration, I thought it was a pretty good Fraser and Niles hologram exchange. Number 1. Wildcards. So, 5 cards stud, nothing wild, and the sky's the limit is famously the conclusion to all good things. As Patrick Stewart revealed in his memoir Making It So, that line wasn't devised by the writers. It was, in fact, an invention on the part of Brent Spiner. Cut the deck, shuffle, then recombine some 30 years later, the entire game was now an improvisation. Still with poker, still with camera overhead, as another end approached. No Laris, but they were all there. Before the last of the Last Generation, and that lecture on Mugato meditation, it was one final round at Guinan's for the old senior staff of The Fat One. As for the poker, Terry Matalas told a Zoom panel in April 2023 via MovieWeb that he let the actors improvise for 45 minutes. The showrunner and the writer-director of the episode continued, "I just rolled the cameras and let them play because I wanted the audience to really feel what it's like to hang out with these actors, and to really feel like the jokes and the smiles were genuine. I wanted the audience to feel that for a few minutes before we said goodbye." As for the finale's final wildcard, Q, that was planned in advance but filmed impromptu on the day. We only had 20 minutes to shoot the scene, so we literally got the man in that amazing outfit, and we just banged it out, Matalas added on Zoom. As for any improv that might come next, we're still waiting for them to make that up. And that's everything for our list, folks. Thank you so much. And again, I implore you, go back and watch the first part of this list as well. Thank you so much to Jack for writing the article this is based on. That's over on whatculture.com. Please make sure you check that out. I have been Sean. We have been TrekCulture. We're at TrekCulture on all the socials. I'm at Sean Ferrick on all the socials. Till I see you again, look after yourself, live long and prosper, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks very much.